everyone, and welcome back to Rapping with the Rep. I'm State Representative Ken Gordon, and I'm excited to have as my guest for this show Senator Ken Donnelly, who covers Burlington and his district. Welcome.
Thank you, Representative. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about the work that we're doing collectively and in the different chambers that we're in that benefit Burlington. One of the most exciting aspects of this job for me in the past year has been the number of times that I've been invited to cut a ribbon to open a business in Burlington. They're opening all the time, and I think I've been able to do more than one a month, maybe more than two a month. The high-tech businesses are coming in and opening, and with it they're bringing people. And those people are eating at the restaurants and going to the various other businesses, and so they've been opening too. Is this the experience? I know you've been to many of those ribbon cuttings. Is this the experience you're having around the district too? And let's talk about some of the things that brings in.
Ken, I think Burlington is right at the epicenter. I have parts of it in other parts of the district, but none more than Burlington. They have, I see high-tech districts and biotech in Lexington and some in Billerica, and business expansion in Woburn, all along the corridor, all along the 95 corridor. But Burlington is right in the heart of it, and I think that Burlington has been a very good community, especially when it comes to attracting good businesses, and it's really good because businesses want to come here.
They really do. And when they open and I ask them, the answer I get, why'd you come to Burlington? They say it's our educated workforce. Right. It's the people here in Burlington. Right. Do you get the same response?
I do, and as a matter of fact, Ken, I was at a breakfast this morning, and it was a Greater Lowell Chamber breakfast, and I mentioned that when I talk to businesses, there are a couple of things that they talk about that they're very important to them. One is the transportation system, which you and I have, and we could talk about that in a moment, but that's important, that whole how we have really good transportation, and we have to improve that transportation. The second is making sure that we have a qualified workforce, and that is a key for these businesses to be able to bring the quality of work to their workplace. We have MIT, Harvard, Northeastern University, Boston College, some great community colleges where we could do some more, but I think that we're very successful because of the investments we've made in those areas.
You're right about that, and we also have these great high schools and technical schools in our area that's providing employment and to those levels right. of business needs.
Right.
So it's all of a part.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things that we focused on to make sure that, as you well know, Workforce Competitive Trust Fund, make sure that we invest in workforce training in the community colleges, working with the whole college system to develop the qualified workforce. We still have a lot to do, by the way, Ken, but I think that we're on the way, and it shows when we have these businesses opening in places like Burlington and Lexington and Woburn and all along the corridor.
You're right. What some people don't know is even within our unemployment system, we have opportunities for training, for education for people who may have lost their jobs, especially around here in the tech field. If technology has passed them by, or if they've got to have training in just one area, there are opportunities here. In taking advantage of some of these opportunities, they can even extend their unemployment benefits.
Yeah, that's right. And you have to make sure that you take advantage of those programs, and there is help out there. If, obviously, you call either one of our offices, we can put them in the right area to make sure that they get that assistance.
Right, and call us right away.
Right.
Once they get into that situation, it's the best time to call. When you mentioned transportation, that is one of the things I wanted to talk about. And you were on our show, maybe it was a year ago now, we had Secretary Davey here talking about public transportation and how it affects our area, because when businesses come here, they want to be able to be sure that they can get their employees to work, their customers to work, and we do have a traffic problem. Yeah. I know you've been actively involved in some of that.
If I've met with 128 Council, I met with Secretary Davies just recently, and he's actually looking at the study for the 128 Council to be able to find ways to get people from Alewife up to Burlington, from the Anderson Transportation Center to Burlington. I talked to him, as both of us talked to him, about a multimodal system someplace where we can hopefully we could bring buses right up through Alewife, right into Burlington somewhere, and be able to get the companies to, have a public-private partnership to bring those, the employees to the companies. They're doing that in Lexington now, on Hartwell Ave.
They are.
The 128 Council is a public-private partnership. They come out of Alewife, and they go up to, there's Shire Pharmaceutical, the one you see right on Route 2 as you go to 128,
Right.
and then Hartwell Ave, which is borders along 128. And so they're doing it, and it's a huge success. And I think that's something we're going to be, I'm pushing hard for, and I know you're pushing hard for,
Right.
for this area.
And we're both working hard with the Middlesex 3 Coalition.
Right.
That's another group that involves Burlington, Bedford, Billerica, Lowell, and Chelmsford.
Right.
And that group coming up Route 3 is again trying to work together with the MBTA in a public-private way to bring transportation up to our area in the same way.
Right. I mean, it's done a tremendous job. I mean, the whole area where you talk about investment in transportation and our transportation dollars being well spent. If you look at the whole, we're 62, Middlesex Turnpike, from the Burlington Mall beyond up into the Billerica line. They've done a lot of work in those areas. The expansion of, Second Ave, Third Ave. And those are great. And as you and I know, and I hope people watching the show understand that we're not done. I think that, as we have said before, we really need to figure out a way to make that congestion around the Burlington Mall in that whole 95 corridor. And also, we have a meeting coming up on the Burlington line on Cambridge Street.
That's right. In fact, there's a meeting scheduled for today, and I know we had to move it back a little bit.
Right.
But we're at work doing that right now.
Because we need to make sure the traffic moves even smoother, because when the traffic backs up on 95, people tend to cut through with GPSs.
Right.
People cut through the communities, and what it does is it puts pressure on the communities, and we have to make sure that traffic keeps moving.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting that this is happening already. These aren't some of the steps that we're taking. Some of these partnerships are occurring already.
Right.
Middlesex 3 has already got some of the shuttles coming up already. And then, as you mentioned, it would be wonderful to see a transportation hub right here in Burlington or in Bedford that could service these needs and can get people then down Route 2 and over to Alewife.
And I think it's so important for the citizens, the average citizen, to understand that we're in a competition with so many other states, whether it's California and Silicon Valley, whether it's North Carolina, whether it's Texas, that are looking for these businesses to come to their states. And we need to make sure that we continue to recruit them here. They want to come to Burlington, the greater Boston area, and locate their businesses here, because with the global economy, with computers, with iPads, with everything else, they could be anywhere.
That's right.
We need to make sure that we provide the services that they need, and those services are, like I said, the transportation, quality workforce, quality of life. When people that live in Burlington, great high school, close to the city, it's a great place to raise a family.
It really is.
Burlington is.
That's right. And it's again, it's attracting the high-tech businesses because of the education that you mentioned at the beginning of the show. This is that center of a business for a business that wants to, for one level of its employee, it's got, like you say, MIT, it's got Harvard. For another level of its employee, it's got the great community college, it's got the great technical colleges and the high schools. And we need to support that. So it's interesting to work now in Beacon Hill with you, and it's a privilege to do that, because we understand that we've got to do the things that businesses don't do, but it supports businesses' opportunity to be here. In a sense, we work on the stadium, and they supply the teams.
Right, that's right.
Get here.
And it's, when you look at, we'll be doing a budget coming up, and we have the local aid. The numbers are okay. They're about the same for Burlington, the same as last year. But I know that the speaker has talked about the fact that he wants to increase local aid in the House budget, and I know that if the House does it, then it comes to us next, and we'll be doing the same as the House.
Right.
We usually do on the local aid package. We have the Chapter 70 money, which is for the school aid, which is increased from the last couple of years, increased again. And we had the Chapter 90 money for the roads, and again, what we talked about, making sure that infrastructure, but that's important. And Thursday, we're doing a bill on the water and sewer infrastructure. And I know that Burlington is going to be doing a lot of work on their water system, or actually their septic, not their septic, their water waste system.
Right, and that's so important because, again, as government, we have pipes that are crumbling under
Right.
some of our communities, and we've got to address that.
Right.
We can't kick that down to another day, or we'll have another one of these problems that occurred a couple of years ago was at Waltham, where we had a leak.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's right. It's right. And so there are a lot of things that we're doing up there to make sure that government, local government works, and sometimes people don't see it, just like, I guess, again, to repeat myself, that how important it is to fund higher education, quality, affordable higher education, how important it is to make sure that we have affordable housing. When I say affordable housing, not just for people that are low income, but people that are middle income.
Right.
There are a lot of different things that we do to help create and try to bring businesses to our area.
They really are. And housing is an issue. It's an issue in our district. It's an issue statewide. We've got a poverty problem, and we've got people who live in our district that are homeless. They're looking for places to stay. And so that's another area that I think when the House budget comes out, we'll be beefing up our support for housing vouchers to help people with their rent.
Hey, even at that, let's go up a step and see how it affects, how we affect a Burlington or a middle class community, and the housing costs and housing prices. One of the big areas that we have to be concerned about is we lose our young adults after they finish school in either places like MIT, Harvard, Northeastern. And a couple of challenges we have. There are about 200,000 graduate students that make their way to the eastern part of Massachusetts to go to school, and they don't go to dorms. They rent apartments. So we have a housing shortage, and it pushes up the rents, pushes up the cost of housing. And then when we educate these young men and women, they want to relocate here, but housing costs are so expensive they end up moving out. So we need to make sure that we tackle that problem so that we can still continue to have the quality workers that we need for our workforce. So it's an issue where people, when you talk about housing, it's not just housing for the low income, which we have to deal with, but it's also housing, we have to deal with the affordable housing for middle class workers and workers that are going to want to stay here and work in our work in our workplaces.
Yeah, where I see that is we've got a lot of new restaurants that have come in to Burlington and to the surrounding areas, and they have trouble getting workers because of housing and transportation problems. And we've got to be able to help because we want to have these restaurants because we've got the people now coming in to support that.
Right, absolutely.
What are some of the programs that you're working on that you find most interesting?
Well, it's a couple of them that I'm working on. One is I continue to work on the Middle Skills Solution Act. Last year we were able to get money into the Workforce Competitive Trust Fund for jobs. That middle skills, as I've said many a times, that what that does is it brings both the community colleges and vocational technical schools together with the companies in the area and the local government officials and state government officials to try to find out what jobs are going to be needed for the future and how we educate the workforce to do those jobs. So we try to stay ahead of the curve, and this is what that's the Middle Skills Solution Act. It would set up a group, a partnership. And also what I'm doing is I've put in funding for the Workforce Competitive Trust Fund. Last year I was successful of getting $6 million in the economic development bill, and this year I put $12 million into the SUP budget, but I was told that I need to come back to the regular budget to put that money in the regular budget. They didn't want to do it in the SUP. But it all comes down to making sure that we create jobs and have opportunities for for the young men and women that are out there struggling. And you know, Ken, I was talking today, and again at the breakfast, and I said to people, I said, you know, the drug czar from Washington was in Taunton yesterday, talking about about the epidemic of heroin.
Right.
And I can tell you that in the Senate we just did a special commission to look at that because this problem is everywhere. It's in Burlington. It's in Lowell. It's in Taunton. It's in Arlington. It's throughout the state. We have a real drug problem that we need to address. And one of the solutions, I think, is we need to deal with it, but we also need to figure out how we can, get jobs for the people that are out there and are still unemployed.
Yeah, having our
or
great
underemployed.
That's right. Having our great schools helps.
Right.
But like you say, if they have jobs to go to, they have greater opportunity.
Right.
And we have to continue to support those opportunities out there.
So that's one of the things. Workforce. That's what my job training, workforce training, and trying to give people the opportunities to do those jobs. Not just college educated, but in many cases community college educated.
Right.
And so I think that has still been one of my top priorities. Also, the one that you're probably very familiar with, I've been pushing is the emergency shelter issue.
Yes.
And eligibility on emergency shelters. So many of our people. I've been fighting this fight for a couple of years. We were able to put money in the RAFT program to make sure people had emergency housing.
Yep.
And we want to, that emergency housing, as you well know, it's only for single parent with children.
Correct.
And actually we're seeing more of a single male parents with children than we have in the past. But they're the ones that are eligible for emergency shelter. And in some cases they have to live in places not fit for human habitation before they're eligible for that shelter.
That's right. And the shelters are far from their homes.
Right.
They feel lost.
Right.
And the qualifications are, as you say, they're stringent.
Right.
We had Aaron Gornstein on the show. He was the last guest.
Oh, really?
Here,
Okay.
Talking about these issues. And the problem is that we've got this bottleneck.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the problems, we've got this bottleneck, and I'm glad that you're addressing that because people would rather, they're looking for the vouchers so that they can stay. They're in an apartment. Something happens usually within their family. It may be an abuse situation. It may be one of the spouses leaves. And the other spouse just can't afford the rent. And it doesn't take long for them to find themselves in a homeless situation.
Yep.
One of the things that I learned that was surprising to me is that almost a third of the adults that are in the shelters, in the hotels and motels, work.
Yeah.
I think the perception is, well, why don't these people get a job? Well, many of them do.
Well, I wasn't going here, but I wanted to tell you that if you look at, there was a study that was just done. I'm trying to think of what it was out of the Midwest, and they looked at, and UMass actually was part of the working group, and if you look at 61% of the people that work in the fast food restaurant industry are adults.
Yeah.
People always say the kids are not. They're adults.
Right.
A lot of them are single parents with children that work 40 hours a week that can't afford to pay for the basic necessities. They're in shelter. And here's what happens. Here's the problem with when you don't pay enough people, you don't pay enough wages for people to live, then the taxpayer picks up the bill. And that's where I think the average citizen doesn't get that. When you have these huge corporations making, having great stock returns, these people that are making making minimum wage or less have to depend on the taxpayer to give them fuel assistance, housing assistance, food stamps, health care, child care, and a lot of other areas, and they're working 40 hours a week and do not bring home enough money to provide for their families. That's a fact. Those are the numbers. Not like when my grandfather came over from Italy. He worked hard, tough job, didn't make a lot of money, but he made enough to raise, my mother and her 4 siblings and have an apartment.
Right.
It's not like that today. I think that's a big misconception about what's different today than what was different in the past. People are working 40 hours a week. Some of them working 2 or 3 jobs, still don't have enough money to pay for housing, food, and clothing and all the basic necessities that they have.
Yeah, I saw a statistic that someone working for the minimum wage currently has to work about, I think, 1,800 hours in a year in order to get enough money to pay for those basic necessities. There aren't enough hours in the year to do that
Right.
when you divide it up. And
Right.
otherwise, as you say, the taxpayers subsidize these companies for their labor costs.
Yeah, and so we, as you and I know, that we set policy, we do policy. Sometimes people agree with it, sometimes they don't. Never easy.
Right.
But we need to make sure that we address these issues. We have to take a look and say, okay, if people actually want to work their way out of poverty and, provide, then they have to have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and these are the programs that make sense.
Right.
As you say, the ones that provide education, that couple education with some assistance for when people need it,
Right.
because it's the society that we live in. So thank you for doing that. I know that you passed a bill through the Senate, and we've got it now to address some of these issues.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough when a fast food restaurant tells its workers where to go to apply for food assistance.
Right.
It's
And
tough
I'm
when
not
that
picking on, we won't pick on any one industry. I think that what we need to do is we need to take a good hard look and say, how do we, clearly we want to make sure that we help small business. We
Right.
want to make sure that we help big business. And as we said at the beginning of the show, we want to make sure that we give them the tools to be able to have companies want to come here and stay here and place the business. So believe me, we don't want to do anything to hurt them, but we also have to keep into consideration that we have to give opportunities to everyone.
Yeah, and when we look at our budget, as you mentioned, we have many ways and many opportunities that we can help small business, large business, and members of the community in all different ways, so that everyone gets their share
Right.
of help and isn't called upon to do more than their share. And I think we've been successful at doing that.
Right.
Another thing that is interesting to me here in Burlington and in our district is the opportunities that we have for cultural advancement. Because when people are looking to this area to bring their businesses and to live here, it's a great place to live. We have great libraries, we have great community theater, we have great opportunities like that, and the Mass Cultural Council has been doing a good job. Are these some of the things you've been looking into as well?
we clearly both. We need to make sure that we continue though to fund our libraries but it's just a wonderful area, and that's why people choose to live here. You're stone's throw from Boston, and with all the libraries and all the cultural experiences and the theaters and everything else. So yeah, it's really is a classic area and a classic place to be.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'm proud to serve with you is the support that you give to the first responders, and especially at this time, and pretty soon now we're going to have the first anniversary of what happened at the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
And we've been supportive, and the government has been supportive, and I appreciate the work that you do as a former firefighter yourself.
Yeah.
for this area.
Yeah, thank you. It's again, it's all a matter of homeland security starts at home, and so it's been it's good. It's people that work hard.
What's been the most rewarding of the experiences that you've had since you've been serving in the Senate?
It's helping people. People call up and have a problem, and I think it's one of the things that I don't think people understand, that they can pick up that phone and call up. No, we can't help everybody. We can't solve everyone's problems, but we sure as heck can get them an answer, and we can, point them in the right direction. And there are times that we've really been able to help people that have had serious problems, and whether it's just recently going through. I had a woman that called, right, that she was going through the connector for health care. I'm not talking about free health care. She was going through the connector. She was paying for it. And her husband was scheduled to get a procedure at a local hospital. And it was going to cost her, she was going to have to come up with $6,000 that day, right, because of the problems they were having with the putting them online with the computer system for the Affordable Care Act. And
Right.
this wasn't affordable. This, like I said, this was through the connector. This was purchasing insurance through the connector, and we were able to call up and just because she was at a dead end. She kept calling and getting transferred, but we were able to call, and we were insistent that we talk to someone and start getting the problem. And the next day, I know that the Health Connector put out a notice that they were going to have something for legislators so that they could get more information. Well, I know that I was one of many of our legislators that just called with outrage to say this has to be done. These people were at their wits' end. They needed help, and we were able to do that. And that's, I think, that when you talk about, we have those opportunities to help people every once in a while, and when they're kind of like up against it and they don't know where to turn, just call our office, and we try. Now, I'm not saying we can do it for everybody, but I can tell you one thing, we will make the commitment to try.
Yes. We can usually get the access
Right.
to, as you say, to get the answer and explain the situation, if not help resolve the situation.
And the people in different agencies will take our phone calls.
Right.
They will take our phone calls, and they'll get back to us in most cases. And that's why, we'll deal with people that really need that help. And that's, I think, the most rewarding part of the job. Because, well, God only knows the last 5 years wasn't that great with the budget. With budgets were tough. And, we had, my first year in, Ken, was we had to cut the budget it come out of the House, and by the time it came to the Senate, we had to cut it by $1.1 billion, which wasn't a lot of fun.
No, those are difficult choices.
Right.
And I know sometimes these programs are just already cut to the bone, and to have to make those choices is difficult.
So if you can do good things for people, that's fun.
Yeah, that makes up
When you
for
tell them that there's no money, that's not fun.
No, not at all. Senator Ken, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. This was a great
Anytime.
chat for me.
Thanks, Ken.
I'm Ken Gordon. This was Rappin with the Rep. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks.
How'd that work out, all right?
That was great.
Good.
Appreciate it.